Well, cheers, everyone. Dave Brown here with the New Populace. Thank you again for joining me. Well, the last few days have been very interesting with the events over in Israel. And anytime you talk about this topic, Israel and Palestine, it is very polarizing. And no matter what you say, you're going to piss some people off. So I'm going to attempt to talk about it with the knowledge that I'm sure some of you won't like what I have to say. But I want to first start by saying that when I look at Joe Biden as president, it is very apparent that there is this void. There is no real strong leadership coming from the United States. And I think that is in part why the world is sort of crumbling. We have the Russia Ukraine issue, we have the China Taiwan issue, and now we have this issue over here in Israel. And with Donald Trump, irrespective of how obnoxious you thought he was, one thing you can't deny was that he was front and center in dealing with world issues. He would get on the phone and talk to Putin, talk to Xi. He went over and talked to Kim Jong Un. He was a large presence and he did lead. And I think that was very important in keeping peace. You need someone out there doing that. And the United States being the world leader, that figure, our president, is the most important person in this process. And with Joe Biden as president, we do not have that. And it seems like there's no one driving the bus. It's on autopilot, just going down the road, bouncing off the barriers. No one's really in control. And that is very apparent right now. Now, as far as this attack by Hamas, we have that very disgusting thing from Black Lives Matter Chicago, showing the paraglider coming in, saying, "I stand with Palestine." And of course, these paragliders landed and massacred a bunch of people at a concert. I hope this finally tells the moderate liberals that BLM is not a good organization. They should not support BLM, and they are, in fact, a disgusting organization. Now, of course, this is the Chicago chapter. I'm sure there are people who support BLM in other places who say we don't support that. Maybe that is true, but if you look collectively at the actions of Black Lives Matter over the last 3 years, the organization is garbage. And about the attack, if Hamas had strictly aimed at military targets, you could at least make the argument that they weren't trying to obviously hurt civilians and that their intentions, they're ambushing the Israelis. If they're at least going after military, it's a war, right? They're fighting a war. But when you murder children, women, people who are just at a concert, there is no way to justify it or say it's part of the process of fighting back. That is terrorism, straight up. And these people, when caught, should be executed. Now, one thing we've been hearing a lot is that this is Israel's 9/11. I've heard a lot of commentators in the West say it. Obviously, Benjamin Netanyahu said it. And what worries me about saying that this is Israel's 9/11 is that if we look back at our own 9/11 here in the United States, what followed was an overreaction that actually, in the long run, damaged us. We started a torture program. We invaded Iraq. So our reaction to the event was excessive and did more harm than it did good. Now, with the Iraq invasion, did 9/11 cause us to go in there? No. it was probably an excuse because we wanted to do it we wanted to do it in the first place. But that being said, again, our overreaction was damaging. I remember over the next several years we had those different color coded warnings things. Green alert, yellow alert, red alert. We did a lot of crazy stuff. Passed the Patriot Act. Just a lot of things that 20 years later we can go, well, that wasn't very helpful. And now we have the Patriot Act being used against American citizens from the event of January 6th. So the overreaction is a concern. And obviously, 3 to 4 days after this has happened, it's hard to blame them, the Israelis, for feeling this way. But that does concern me, the idea that we're using this terminology, a 9/11. And that brings me to a question that some people won't like, and that is, has an Arab country ever experienced a 9/11? What am I getting at here? Well, we seem in the West to not have the same concern for the lives of Arabs and Muslims as we do for Americans and Israelis. We killed, over 100,000, well, far more than that in Iraq, of civilians. There are 350,000 dead Syrians from that war that we helped to further on. We have killed a lot of Arabs and Muslims in the Middle East, the United States, through our invasions, through our policies, but they never seem to be the ones who ever experience a 9/11-like event. And until we start treating everyone the same, we're going to have a huge problem. And that brings me to the issue of what is a war crime? Right now, the Israelis are bombing the crap out of Gaza, and this is going on after we heard the Europeans and people in the United States saying what Putin has done in Ukraine is a war crime because he bombs some of the power stations, cutting off electricity. We say that's a war crime. This guy is terrible. Well, they just shut off water and electricity for 2 million people. What exactly is a war crime then? Is that a war crime? We need to be consistent here. And it's funny because recently we had Armenia sign on to the Rome Statute, which means that if Putin goes to Armenia, he can be arrested and tried at the the ICC, the criminal court. The funny thing is that the United States is not a signatory because we were worried that our actions in Afghanistan could be used to charge Americans. So there's this obvious inconsistency with what a war crime is. And what the truth is that there's no such thing as a war crime. There is only what you can get away with. So Israel is bombing Gaza because they can get away with it. That's the truth. There's only what you can get away with. And all of our beautiful laws at the end don't account for much. And that, reminds me of the rules-based international order, right? We talk about the rules-based international order. And there is none. There are countries with the power to do what they want. That is the rules-based international order. And since we were always the most powerful country in the world, we could do what we want. And we said, okay, whatever we do, well, that's also the rules. And what we're frightened about is the fact that other countries like China are getting powerful enough to say, nah, we're not going to follow the rules, whatever rules they are. We're going to do our own thing because we are powerful enough to do it. And that's the truth there. Now, back to the Israel conflict. It seems there are three sides. And again, because this is fresh, not a lot of people are thinking straight. And again, that's understandable. But the three sides are this. One is that Israel should retaliate, do whatever they want to crush Hamas and the Palestinians. And that seems to be the message from the mainstream media here in the United States, from Europe. That is the prevailing thought. But there are two more. The second one is that Palestine is justified because of how the Palestinians have been treated in the Gaza Strip. And again, I said before, you start targeting women and children, I can't go along with that, so I sort of dismiss that one. But there is a third side here, and that is people saying what they did was terrorism. They should all be killed, these Hamas guys. But we need to understand the bigger picture here. What led up to this? Now, when you say this or try to talk about this, people in the first group immediately accuse you of being in the second group, being people who are justifying this attack. And that has happened in a lot of different events. For example, 9/11. People said, well, why are Palestinians, or not, sorry, not Palestinians, why were these terrorists so upset that they committed suicide by flying planes into buildings? People asked that question. And when they did, they were immediately accused of sympathizing with terrorists. And that was not what they were doing. They were trying to say, in order for us to prevent this in the future, we need to understand the larger picture here. What led up to this happening? But you're not allowed to do that. 9/11 is here. You can talk about everything forward, but you're not allowed to look backwards. Same thing with Ukraine. Putin invades. Putin's a war criminal. He's terrible. And someone goes, well, what led up to this last 8, 9, 10 years? What are you, a Putin apologist? No. I'm trying to understand why things got to the point where Vladimir Putin said, I'm going to invade Ukraine and engage in this long, costly war. What were the events that led up to this? And I think that third group is the group that I'm in. I go, these people are terrorists, these Hamas people, but what were the conditions that led up to Hamas doing this? And of course, the answer to that is very, very complicated, and no one wants to have that discussion honestly, which is why we are going to be stuck in this perpetual violence indefinitely. People always say, what is the solution here for the Middle East and Israel? There are solutions, but the ones that might actually bring about peace are the ones that will never ever be looked at. So we are going to be locked in this for a very long time, and the worry here is that this could spiral out of control. Hezbollah gets involved, Israel gets desperate, maybe they bomb Iran, Iran responds. What do we do, the United States? Both World War I and II started off with a couple of acts, and then things just spiraled out of control, and that is my bigger concern. Where does this go? And the way people are acting right now, very emotionally, and again, that's understandable, but the way they're talking is dangerous in the sense that things could easily get out of control, especially when you have people like Hezbollah, Hamas, and people over there who think that there's perhaps a religious aspect here where sacrificing themselves is okay. People who are willing to die are very, very dangerous, and when you fight people who are willing to die, they can do anything, and that's why you're smart if you're a country to give people enough means that they have something to lose. When people have nothing to lose, when they are a caged animal, when they're an animal trapped in a corner, anything's possible. So hopefully, over the next few weeks, things don't spiral out of control. They might. And hopefully, Israeli leadership understands that their reaction, if it's not somewhat measured, it's not thought out, could in fact lead to a worse result for Israel, not a better one. But with Benjamin Netanyahu, he has been very pointed in his comments, and I'm not too sure he will restrain himself, but we will see. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.